without further introduction, so please give up Mr. Ippei Tsuruga.
Selamat siang. I have a PPT, but while preparing, I think I can say also hello to my colleague friends from trade unions and employers organizations, and then also the government representatives watching through camera, if I understand it correctly. So it's a mixed group of students, young people, and then also seniors, including myself. And so it's a bit challenging presentation I'm going to make today. We normally have only senior citizens, but we wanted to also engage students and the youth because this topic is very relevant for young people, actually. So maybe I'll make a self-introduction. So my name is Ippei Tsuruga, based in ILO Jakarta office, tinggal di Jakarta Pusat for 3 years and then working for ILO. And we have been working a lot on pension reform, JHT, Jaminan Hari Tua. Familiar? Jaminan pension? Familiar? Yes, and then now we are talking about the new program called long-term care insurance, led by Bappenas, government of Indonesia. The pension programs aim to provide regular income for old people, older citizens, because when you retire, your parents retire, they suddenly lose income. How to make a living? So usually other countries have a good pension system. That in Bahasa Indonesia, pension it means a retired pension. But in the world, it basically means a regular income every month, pension. Periodic income program. Every month or every 2 months, every citizen will receive income for basic needs and food necessity to cover their necessary basic needs. So that is the pension program, man. Here in Indonesia, for civil servant, TASPEN, TNI, police, Asabri. And then private sector workers, Jaminan pension. And then Jaminan Hari Tua. If you are self-employed, bukan penerima upah, or whatever you call it, informal workers, you only have a Jaminan Hari Tua for regular income. Okay, let's, yeah. So you cannot see, but my title is, Are We Ready for Aging? Yeah, it's okay, I can control that, no problem. It works. So how much time do we have? So I want to start from that for Indonesia, because before we go into detail of the topic, I wanted to set the scene where Indonesia is. So let me just introduce myself. Probably you don't know me, so let me introduce myself. This is my family history and also Japanese history related to pension topic. In 1960s, Japan started the national pension program, and it's called the Jaminan Pension National. It's like a Jaminata National. You have full access to healthcare, right? We have a Jaminan Kesehatan National in 1960 for healthcare. And then we had the Jaminan Pension National for regular income program for the old citizens in Japan. My grandfather was 35 years old at the time, 35 years old. And he was a full-time self-employed farmer. And he had a wife, a full-time, also contributing family member. She didn't have a regular income from anywhere else, so she was helping my grandfather's business. But he was 35 years old, and then the government started this program. And then Japan started aging phase. Do you know the definition of aging? To UNFPA, when the number of older persons above the age of 65 becomes 7%, it's aging phase. Am I correct? Yeah, so I don't want to present this in front of a demographer, but let me present. So then when it becomes 14%, it's called the aged society. More or less, okay, let's do this in this way. So Japan took 25 years to get there. So this is the kind of indicators we can compare the progress or pace of aging in any countries. I will come back to that. So in 1973, my mother started working in agriculture cooperative as an employee, full-time employee after high school. She doesn't have a university degree. My father had a university, very rare case. So he started working late. My mother started working 7 years earlier than my father because graduated from high school and started working immediately. And her first salary was more or less 4 million rupiah, juta, at that time, equivalent in Japanese yen. And then 1984, I was born, so I'm still masih muda, 41. Ya, 41 tahun usia. So I was born after 11 years after my mother started working. Then my grandfather retired one year after I was born. And then Japan enters the aged phase when I was 10 years old. And Japan started long-term care insurance, new schemes, LTC insurance, when I was a high school student, 2000, recent, 25 years ago. And then my mother retired in 2003. When I graduated from high school, my mother retired because she had some problem. She got some problem in mental health at that time because of a lot of pressure. So she retired earlier, the age of, I think, 50 or 51. But she spent 30 years in the same workplace, which is already good. Yeah, mantap. So then I got a full-time job in 2010. And then, of course, I participated in Social Security. And then my grandfather became 98 years old, still alive in 2023. And then he finally started to be taken. How do you call it? He moved to the public, it's not nursery, we call it term care facility for lansia. It's not, probably you don't have many places in Indonesia, but there are a lot of such places organized by the public entity. So it's a public long-term care facility. He moved there years ago. And so if you see the right-hand side, you will see left-hand side. You will see the progress and then what happened at that time. From 1950s to 1980s, we had a demographic bonus as a country. So that was the best time. Japan economy grew like 10%, 5 to 10% every. And so we had high growth and high wage growth as well. I explained to you, my mother's first wage was rupiah. When she retired, she got 40 million rupiah per month. It's not because, okay, she did a great job, but not because she performed better than others, but everyone's wage grew like 10 times between that time. So because demographic bonus, and this was the best time in Japanese history. So everyone thought this will continue. And my parents didn't think, they would have to prepare for old age at that time. They never thought they would have to pay pension. But because the government forced them to pay contributions, they were automatically paying. So that was the reality. And then also my grandfather was paying automatically. So 1990s from 1990s to 2020, we didn't have any single growth wage. So when I started working, our wage was more or less similar to our parents. So we didn't have any good time generation. So probably my brother's wage, my brother is a pharmacist, Toko Obat. Yeah. His wage is more similar to what my mother was receiving 30 years ago. I hope Indonesia will not have the same low period, but this was what happened in my country. Probably because of the end of demographic bonus, probably because of Japanese labor problems. It's combined factors exist. So now what is happening to my family is that, as you see in 1985, my grandfather started receiving pension. He retired from his self-employed farming activities, but he was a part of this national pension program. So he started receiving like 40% of minimum wage from the government. And then now he is still receiving it after 30 years, almost. He's still receiving monthly income from the national pension system. So I'm lucky because they were paying contributions. They had a program, but I don't have to pay them. So that is my probably family background. And in 2020s, we are having a problem in Japan now. We don't have workers. We don't have professional care workers. So we are having more Indonesian migrant care workers currently. We are relying on Indonesian care workers. They work in Japan temporarily for probably 5 years in the public care facilities and to help grandfathers to take a bath, go to toilet together, change clothes, Indonesian work, not all Indonesian workers, okay. There are also Japanese workers are there, but we have a shortage in labor forces in these particular sectors. So we're discussing, shall we increase the burdens of my grandfather, because the younger generations now don't have money to cover the expenses. But my grandfather has a regular income than we have sometimes. I mean, absolute amount, of course, our income is much lower, but much higher. But my grandfather's doesn't have to spend a lot. He just needs to stay there. But the financial sustainability is getting worse and worse. So now, in 2020s, Japan is discussing we will increase the out-of-pocket expense of citizens and reduce the contribution rates of young people. So in Indonesia, it's opposite. So in my view, Indonesia started aging last year and finished phase and become aged society in 1944, according to ILO's demographic projection. There may be some differences in different definition, but I feel like Indonesia is here in my kind of family event and the Japanese national events table. So the question is, my comment, trust me, Indonesia doesn't have much time left. From my experience, my parents' generation was already sandwich generation. I'm the probably super sandwich generation because I have 2 generations above. But I don't have to help them because the pension exists, long-term care insurance exists, etc. Demography. This is major comments I receive from many people when I go to any islands in Indonesia and do social dialogue, policy dialogue. My children will take care of me. They are willing to help you. But here's the reality is we have 27 million older persons above age D today, 27 million. We will have 70 million older citizens above 60 years old in 25 years time by 2050. So we will have much older people. Then the number of children, youth will go down, continuously go down. So we have a 6 working age population to potentially support 1 older person, and we will only have 3 working age population by 2040 to support 1 older person. So much fewer working age population will have to care oceans as a country from macro point of view. So this is very interesting, very frank comment I heard from Korean professor who was specialized in long-term care insurance last week, Professor Kwon. He said in the last week in our policy dialogues, trust me, your children will not take care of you. And I fully agree. I still remember this. Only one sentence from last week I remember. He said that it's true because I'm not taking care of my parents. I want to take care of them, but they are not because I don't live with them. So the willingness and the reality is sometimes different. And this may happen in Indonesia, even children want to take care. So elderly care, what is elderly care? We will hear more detailed stories, but in mind, there are 3 major expenditure items regarding elderly care. Elderly still need to eat. They still need to go toilet. They need basic needs, expenditures. And for basic expenditures, okay, we need regular income in general. So income source can be varied. From Social Security, Jaminan Pension, Jaminan Hawa, Taspen, Asabri. This is the program to secure older person's income by design. In reality, of course, there is a by design. And medical care, they need to go to the hospital because many of them become disabled partially or they need to have regular medical checkup, they need medicine. So Jaminan Kesehatan Nasional is a relevant program. Other cares, which are covered by JKN. If you are not sick, you cannot use JKN, basically. But older persons require the support to change clothes, like my grandfather, or go to bath because he cannot walk. He can walk with a wooden stick, but not as fast as he wanted. So he needs some support to go to the toilet and taking a bath. We don't have that program in Indonesia, and Bappenas and the government of Indonesia are thinking about the new program, long-term care insurance. So basically, JKN provides a discount price or affordable medical care services if you have a JKN. And long-term care insurance has a similar concept. You will have a affordable, discounted service fee if you have a long-term care insurance. So you have a better access, easier access to the care services. That is the concept of long-term care. So we need 3 programs, effective program to support old age, in my view. So for medical care, in reality, you may know more about the JKN. This is from health profile by Ministry of Health published last month. I took the figure. Indonesia has 285 million populations, as you know, and an active members who are currently, whose JKN membership is still active. It means you go to the hospital and you can use that card. There are 223 million. But of which 144 million are fully tax funded, so they are not paying contributions, but their card is still active. It's called JKN. APBN is a national state budget, and the APBD is a regional budget, provincial budget. So different source, but in total, 144 million people are fully subsidized member, PBE. Only 79 million people are currently paying contributions, non-PBE members. And inactive participants, 555. So these people, 55 million people, used to pay contributions. or it used to be the PBE members. That's why their card used to be active, but no longer active. So probably that means they are not currently paying contributions, or they are not targeted by PBE scheme because they are not poor. So they are not miskin. So they are either they are not paying or they are not poor. So they don't have the active membership, 55 million. Many reasons behind, maybe. But if you calculate the percentage, so the effective coverage is 78 million. 78%. And 65% of active members are fully subsidized by the government. You probably heard last 2 weeks ago, the government was planning to cancel the debts of the JKN people. No? So my understanding, they will use the APBN budget to cancel the debts of these 55 million people at maximum. They may have some other criteria to reduce how many people they can cover depending on the budget. But if the government use APBN, save them, the coverage will go up to 98% immediately. But the question is, what happens after they cancel it? Will they start to paying contributions? Is there any policy measures to trigger, to change their years? Not all of, in theory, they are not poor because they are not targeted by PBE JKN. So one possible factor is the child has a problem. The second factor is their behavior. They are not poor, but they are probably not willing to pay, or the debt has been accumulated too much, so they cannot pay anymore. There may be a lot of problem, but without changing anything in a simple to the debts, I expect more and more people remain unpaid. How to call it? They're not. There will be a lot of people who are not paying contribution in the near future again. So the reason why I'm talking about this is that older persons will also have to pay contributions under the current mechanism. Unless they are poor, JKN contribution is still mandatory for older persons as well. So they need to pay contributions every month to activate their membership. But they don't have regular income to pay. So the question is, who will pay their health insurance contribution? That is one probably question I wanted to pose. If Indonesia starts this kind of program, Indonesia will also have to think about who will pay the contribution of persons. And many people may say, yeah, the government should pay. Okay, where the government money comes from? That's from the tax, from the probably natural resource reserve, or profits from the state-owned enterprises. Anyway, it's coming from the people's pocket. Or is it coming from contributions of the current generation or future generations? So there is no kind of rocket science. We need to figure out the matching, best matching of financing and who will benefit. So many people still say it's not urgent for Indonesian people to think about this because Indonesian people by nature enjoy today's life. That's serious comments I receive every time. But as I said, Indonesia's aging speed is slightly faster than Japan. Japan took 25 years from 7% to 14%. Indonesia will spend only 21 years to there. So the speed is much faster, so no time to waste, in my view. And then some of my friends still said, no, it's okay, let me work, let me focus on today's work. But thanks to Indonesia's health progress, older persons will live longer and longer these days. Some people may say, oh no, Indonesia still expectancy is still around 74, but our ILO actuaries use a different life expectancy. Use a life expectancy at the age 60. So it means when you become age 60, how long you will still live. So if we consider that aspect, Indonesian people today will live up to 80 years old if they were already 60 years old. So as you know, many companies still use the retirement age, 56, 55, corporate retirement age. How can you live for 25 years without income? Usually, pension system will help, but not all have it. But people still say pension can possibly help. They hope, yeah? But by design, in reality, Indonesia has one of the lowest pension coverage in ASEAN member states in reality. The number of persons who are receiving public pensions, private saving funds. It's not surprising Brunei and Timor-Leste have higher. I can tell you why later. In Indonesia, this table shows the number of active members who are contributing to different pension programs in Indonesia. You may know how many civil servants here exist, and then how many police and armed forces. And among self-employed, there are only 600,000 people participating in a JHT program, and they don't even have a right to participate in jaminan pension by design. They don't have rights. So if you're in the large companies, 40 million workers are participating in jaminan pension. If you don't work in large companies, you're likely among 600,000 JHT participants or the rest. So most of people don't have either JHT or jaminan pension. That's the reality today. And I said housekeeping, but I think this is not housekeeping. It's more like housewives. 28 million housewives and 2 million house husbands. That's my interpretation. It's Bahasa problem, sorry. That's my problem. But if I understand correctly, that means housewives. They don't even have a right to participate in any of these schemes because they're considered workers. So unless they claim themselves as self-employed, they don't even have the right to participate in JHT or jaminan. So they don't even have rights to participate. And another problem is, okay, we have the retirement age, pension age. From the company, people retire at the age of 56. There's no such regulation, though. JHT 56 as a retirement age, and jaminan pension will set increasing retirement age. So when you start working, probably you can expect you will still have to work until the age 65 to receive jaminan pension, because there's a schedule in the regulation. So let me just take a very easy math. You can do more complex simulation later because you're an economics student. How much can you expect from a jaminan pension? You can go to BPJ's website. If you are PPU, waged workers, companies' employees, and then you have average wage 5 million rupiah, it's quite high, and you have already contributed 30 years and retire today. You can expect from JHT 233 million rupiah. It sounds a lot. And then you can expect 1.5 million rupiah every month you die from jaminan pension. So different formula. You get one shot, big money from JHT, and you have a little sedikit every month from jaminan pension. So jaminan pension has more closer concept of pension for us. If you are self-employed, you have 80 million rupiah in lump sum from JHT. That's the formula, because you don't have an employer to contribute together with. That's why your amount is a little bit smaller. And then if you spend, let's say, 2 million rupiah for your basic needs food after you return, you can live up to 10 more years, up to 65 years old with Jihate. And then you finish at the savings. If you spend 3 million instead of 2 million, when you become 61, you have no money in your account. JP, Jaminan Pension, will ensure regular income until you die, 1.5. And this is, the amount is increasing with the inflation. So this is indexed with the inflation, JP. So it's a better deal for me. I don't know how you find it. But the self-employed, you only have a little money under the current system. So this is not the problem of compliance. This is the problem of the system. You don't have the system to support you. So that's why we really need to think about the significant reform today. But said that, we still get a lot of complaint or criticism. We cannot afford to pay contributions. But let's compare the other countries. Here, people, companies are paying the least among all ASEAN member states. So if we only look at the amount of contribution that other countries' people are paying, other countries are a bit more serious than probably Indonesian society, if we only look at this aspect. So, of course, everyday life is difficult, but social insurance perspectives, to be fair, other countries paying much more. But of course, we need to think about taxes and everything. But we need to find the right balance. Almost the last slides, I need to hand over. Why Brunei and Timor-Leste had a very high pension coverage? Because of these programs. If older people become age 60 years old, both countries pay 40% of minimum wage equivalent to all citizens. So in theory, there is a zero coverage gap. Percent of population are covered by these schemes. So government will ensure at least 40% of minimum wage until they. However, not sure if these countries can continue because they may run out their natural resources. How do they get money from? So many countries actually mix contributory and tax funded for security, financial stability. Indonesia, we calculated if Indonesian government want to start such schemes, Indonesian people could potentially receive 500,000 rupiah when they become 65 years old, but still something. And then it will cost 120 trillion rupiah, APBN. That is about 12% of APBN for Bantuan Sosial this year. If it's too much for the government, it can, such a can start from 75 years old instead of 65 to save the budget. And then that require the APBN budget to be 30 trillion rupiah. That is more or less 10% of APBN budget this year. So it's just a matter of choice. Yeah. School feeding program, Makan Gratis program, I think 100 trillion. And JKN PBE has more or less 80 trillion. So why not Jaminan Pension Nasional or Pension Sosial or fully tax-funded program? So very last, we have a Japanese model. We were asked to calculate this option. In the Japanese system, the government has all the adults above the age 20 must pay contributions. You have no choice. 10% of minimum wage. So it's like you must pay 300,000 rupiah in Indonesia every month, no matter what employment you have. If you cannot pay, you go to the government office and say, I'm a bit miskin this month. So can you exempt? You can do that. You need to report it. But in theory, you need to pay contribution, and then almost 95% of populations are covered by this scheme, including my grandfather, full-time farmer, half a century ago. So it's not a problem of informality. It's the problem or the approach of the policy design. So overall, it's like this. You pay 10th of minimum wage every month, no matter what employment you have. When you become adult, you must pay 10% of minimum wage, more or less, 300,000 rupiah. And you get old, 65 years or whatever, you will get 40% of minimum wage every month until you die. This is the deal in Japan. My grandfather was lucky because he was not educated, but somehow he was paying. Or he was probably forced to pay. So probably he didn't like it, but I like it as grandson. Because I'm lucky because they are paying contributions. So I'm lucky as a grandson or son of my parents because they were paying, even though probably they didn't want it. So if we pay today, our children's generation will probably appreciate for that. That's, I think, the formula. Yeah, so I think I see here. And thank you very much for listening. And I would like to hand over to Nabil. Oh, okay, not Kisha.
Okay, thank you, Ippei.
Terima kasih, Prof. Tuning. Yes, I will use that word in the next brief. Yeah, thank you. I got the same comment from you, Ibu Mia. So I will collect it next time.
Yes, intergeneration.
I think my question to me from Prof was whether my parents and grandparents are happy or not. It's related to, I think, wealth index, etc. But I don't have samples. I only have one sample. So from my personal experience, there are different age and his happiness level changed. When he retired, he was extremely happy because he had a pension and he had savings traveling across the world with his wife. But his wife then got kind of a very difficult brain cancer, and so he had to take care of his wife for 10, 15 years, and then they couldn't speak at all. But he didn't have to spend money because she also had a pension and a full medical coverage by the state. So that part he was happy because he didn't have to pay. But emotionally, he was not happy. And then after that, she passed away, and then his son also passed away because of a heart attack. Then he had to rely on daughter-in-law. But the daughter-in-law also got Alzheimer's. So now he became alone. So up and down. And his real daughter, his daughter, my mother, still live in the same town, and she was taking care of him. So he was happy. But my mother couldn't take care of him at all at the end because she also got old. She's now 75. And my grandfather was 98. Finally, he was convinced to move to the facility. So that was his choice to move to the public facility, burden his daughter. So it's a mixed emotion. But initially, of course, he refused to go to the facility because he was not happy. But at the end, he chose to go there because he didn't want to kind of, he didn't want to spend more time, of my mother. So it's a mixed emotion. But without public services, he was extremely unhappy, right? Because all our, he may feel all our family members, would feel burdensome for him, right? But because of his a lot of public services, he didn't have to feel in that way. So it's mixed emotion. So I don't know if it would help to create this index in the future, but that's one sample from me. And first question to me, I think from the back, you remember correctly, children is investment. Yes, I hear this story a lot from Java Island. I also went to Sulawesi and I heard the same story. And I haven't asked to Sumatran people, but probably similar stories. In my view, the children could be the final backstop of old age in reality, just like the story of my grandfather, my parents. They don't rely on us until they really get stuck or they really need support, money in terms of time. But until then, they don't want to rely on their kids. That's how I feel in our society. But same things may happen when the number of children go down and down, and then the number of older persons will go up and up in this country. So I think we need to have to split our mindset into two: a willingness to support them and affordability to support them. Affordability means in terms of time, mostly time actually, not money. We want to give money, but we spend more time. For example, I need to quit the job here and I move back to my village to support them 24 hours if we had no public support. So it's not a matter of willingness, but more time, more on the time. I think that's all I can say. Education on the savings, yes. We need to ask Gen Z how they think. I don't know, but that's also another very common comment I receive. People like to spend a lot, and then we need to educate people. Yes, that's one aspect. Yeah. Yes, I think so. I agree. But the beauty of, let's say, beauty of a public pension system is that a person like my grandfather who had no education, I can tell, primary, below primary education, and he didn't know anything about pension. He didn't like to pay pension contribution, but somehow he was to contribute to the public fund. He had no choice. And then at the end of his life, he was happy. He was happy at that time. But after he retired, he was happy because, oh, luckily I got it, thanks God. But it's actually not because of God, because of contributing, right? So I think that's the beauty of these public schemes. Without education, we need trust in the state. That's another issue. But that's the beauty. Without education, we at least have a basic regular income in old age. I think that's something missing here. I think people who are educated in this classroom will have no problem, I think. People will be educated. But what happened to other 100 millions of self-employed people with low education? I think that will be the major question. Shall we? Yes, we need to provide a financial education. But probably most important thing is, even though you have no education, you have no knowledge, you will regular income in the future. I think that's a matter of public system. So additionally, we can have saving and financial education in my view.
Mungkin kita bisa lanjutkan dari yang Zoom ya, ada beberapa tadi. Boleh langsung dijawab ya.
Boleh saya.
Untuk ada pertanyaan for Mr. Ippei, can you share with us when Japan demographic bonus ended in 1980, and what is the percentage of economic growth and the tax ratio of Japan? So you touched page about the need for long-term care, but from the presentation, I wasn't able to pinpoint what solution to increase commitment in Indonesia to start thinking about the LTC. And based on the study, they estimate and combine data and found that 12% elderly, or around 40% of them, in needs of LTC. Availability in panti in Indonesia, let's say national approximately 400 of them, where one panti can only support 200 elderly. So that's only about 1% of the total elderly in need of LTC now. So what would be the best solution for this from Tia Harasati?
Yeah, I know her, so let's talk in Jakarta maybe. First question I need to ask ChatGPT, so I cannot tell you, to be honest, sorry. You have? Yeah, I cannot answer the first one. I need to look at the data, really. So, sorry, I cannot answer the first one, really. Second one, it's not easy, not only to digest this context, but also what to start, right? In my view, Indonesia need to have the universal pension schemes first. Everyone above the age 60, 65 must have a regular income. That's the first step. And next, or at the same time, long-term care insurance, or JKN. JKN exists, so long-term care insurance or mechanism to support care programs are needed, but who will pay? So I think at least from some pensioning, the government may consider to take contribution from elderly, for example. That's one option. But long-term care insurance can be the next step to the pension program, because without income, how can the older persons pay out-of-pocket expenses, co-payment, or contribute? Or shall we just add more contribution and out-of-pocket expenses to the working age population? I don't think that's the answer. So we need to have regular income program for the older persons. That is a pension. That's the first step in my view. Then term care. If we have, after having a long-term care insurance mechanism, for example, in Korea, they have a now slightly supply in the care services. So they created a market, right? Because there would be more demands. The long-term care insurance started. So when the demands created, stimulated by the long-term care insurance, the new market called long-term care services emerged. So that would be another kind of also job opportunities for young as well. So I think the sequence can be like that, but I don't know if this is the only solution. It's just important to start from something at least. So pension first, and long-term care discussion we can start now, in my view.